Hey everybody, welcome back to Parenting with Your Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janelle. Welcome back. Happy New Year, everyone. As you know, I took off for the whole month of December to give myself a break, y'all. Because parenting ain't easy, and out here in these streets trying to make it good for everybody, sometimes you need that little break. And also just to revamp, just to reinvent. We've been rocking out with Parenting with a Purpose podcast for since March of last year, so we're coming up on our year anniversary in a couple of months, right? So just wanted to take some time off, spend more time with the kids, do a little bit more self-care since we've been rocking hard. But I'm glad to be back. It is January and it's a happy new year. We love a new year because we set up new goals, new visions, and we get to modify some things in our life, get to change some things. So I'm happy to be back. So, here at Panther with a Purpose, our mission is to bring back the responsibility and nobility and beauty back into parenting, right? The whole thing is the parents are the bows and our children are arrows, and they will land wherever we send them. Now, again, as I told y'all before, they may not land today, they might not land tomorrow, but best assured that they will land where we aim them eventually. Now, I say that eventually because that word is a very big word and we can stretch that word out. Eventually, they will land because, as I know, it's not in our own timing, right? Our kids have their own journey to live. They don't have their own process of life. And we kind of got to step back and let them, God, do whatever he want with them and however he want to do with them, right? Within the boundaries of us parenting them. So if we give our children the tools, right? If we equip them, if we don't send them outside naked, if we clothe them well, eventually, that there's an old saying that actually is not even an old saying. It's something that we still should say: train up a child so when they get old, they don't depart from anything that you have instilled into them, anything good. Now, we want them to depart from some of our mess that we done did, because as parents, we're not perfect. We want them to depart from those things, but the good, solid, sustainable things, we want them to have. We don't want them to go away. So even if they do get off the road a little bit, if they go to the left or to the right, eventually they'll end back up on the right road. It does take time. I've been a parent for almost 25 years now. I know I look great. I know I don't look like, I'm a mother of 4 and the oldest will be 25, but I am indeed, okay? Let's just tell you that this parenting thing, although it's heavy, but it ain't weighing me down. I'm still able to just do what I need to do and keep myself together as well. Now, that may not be for a lot of people. So this episode today is like a welcome back, right? And I want to encourage parents about keep fighting a good fight of parenting. It is a hard not life out here for parents. I know, trust me, I've struggled, right? I've struggled throughout the years. I've struggled just recently. I tell y'all, I got these teenagers, right? The 3 teens. Now, the 17 and the 2 15-year-olds. And let me tell you, this last month has been I feel like one of the challenging months in parenting. Now, we can go back and see, okay, so each level or each stage in our parenting and our children growth and development, there are some hardships, right? Because we heard about the terrible 2s. Well, we got the rough 2s into the hardest 3s, right? Because I don't think it's such thing as terrible 2s. I think when they go into that 3-year-old stage, it's a whole new ball game. Like they just know what's going on, and then they talking a whole lot, right? So each stage in development in our parenting and also in our growth and development of our kids, there are rough patches, right? There's hard things that we go through. And I feel like, I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I feel like this is the worst thing in parenting. This is the hardest part. Let me tell you, in the beginning, when the babies are crying and you done fed them, you done changed them, you done played with them, you done did everything you could with them, and they still want to scream in your face, right? You're like, oh man, I don't know if I could do this. Like, this is too hard, right? Because it's like, it seemed like as a parent, you start feeling like you can't do nothing right. You can't console this kid. You can't make them happy. And now this kid bound to make you not happy, right? That's how we feel sometimes. And one of the things that I remember when my oldest was really young, I think she had to be about 2 years old, maybe about 18 months to 2 years old. And I've done everything I could for this girl. Let me tell you. I done fed her, I done changed her, I done walked her around, I done played with her. I was dang near tired playing with her, right? And she just would not stop crying. She was screaming. She wasn't sick or anything. And parents, sometimes you get in those modes where those kids just won't stop, right? No matter what you do, they won't stop. And I remember talking to the doctor. I was like, listen, one day I almost shook her. I wanted to shake her and say, be quiet, just stop, And that's so dangerous because they have a such thing called shaken baby syndrome, right? If you shake a baby too hard because they're the way that their brain and their skull is, that you can cause a lot of damage, right? I've seen it working in pediatrics. I've seen babies who had sustained injuries from shaken baby syndrome. But when you're in that moment, right, you don't know what else to do. You just want to be quiet. I don't know. They're screaming at you and you're ready to scream at them, right? So in that stage of parenting, I thought this is the hardest thing. I was 19, newly married, newly babe, right? I didn't know what was going on. And I remember the doctor said, put her in a safe place, put her in her crib, close the door and walk away. Now, that don't even sound right to me. What you mean? Put her in a safe crib, close the door, and walk away. But let me tell you, that is so important so that we can gather ourselves, right? Because as long as you know that child is safe, as long as you know you fed that child, you changed the child, you've done everything you possibly can to console the child, and they still have this little episode where they just want to scream. Because remember, they're still trying to learn the world too and figure out what's going on. So, babies have these little temper tantrums. Listen, adults have temper tantrums, right? So she said, put her in her crib and walk away for about 5 or 10 minutes. And I felt like I was such a bad mom doing that. I felt like, oh my God, I can't understand why I can't handle this baby that's only 18 months is now taking charge of my life, right? I didn't understand. I thought I was losing all my mind cells, my brain cells and everything, because I was like, this is for the birds. I see why them birds had them babies in them eagles. They have them in a nest and then they push them right out at such an early age, right? Because it's so hard. But over the years, I found out that it's so important for you to gather your thoughts and gather yourself, because you don't want to damage your child. You don't want to hurt your child, right? So that's in the early years, like when you don't know what else to do. That is all you can do, right? Then as they get older, right, they start talking more. They start telling you stuff. No. You're like, you tell me no one more time. That is not nice, right? So we get in those stages, those years of growth and development where they start to tell you no, pull away from you, and just do different things. And you're like, listen, I'm the mom. Or if the dad, I'm the dad. I don't understand why my authority is not working over you right now, right? That was hard. And then as they grow, right, they get into, I feel like the elementary, or maybe from the ages of 5 to, I would say 5 to 9 seemed like the easiest things for me. Like, kids, they were sponges. They was listening to everything I had to say. They looked up to me. They feared me, not in a scared way, but like, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah. And it seemed like they were so moldable, so we could shape them, like they're on the potter's wheel. We can kind of mold and shape them and stuff like that. I felt like that would seem like the easiest years. And then they go into once they start getting 9, because before it used to be 13, 12, 13, they start smelling stuff a little bit. We're in a different society now. So like around 9, 10, things start changing, attitudes start shifting and stuff. And you feel like, oh man, can I really still do this parenting thing? I've been in there for a minute, but I don't know, because it's starting to get a little rough again, because you had them, I call them the golden years, the glory years, where things like, oh, they love me. They show me they love me. But then they start having a little attitude a little bit later, and you just like, well, what did I do wrong? Because all this was just going so well, right? So then you get through those stages, right? You get through those growth and development. All right, we back on the same track now. We like each other. We good. We always love each other, but now I think we like each other a little bit, right? Then you get in them teenage years. It's like you get that 13-year-old. I think we should take a moment of silence for these teens. For those parents who are parenting teens, because I'm telling you, it is rough out here. And I'm wondering, what my parents really had to deal with as growing up, because it is hard out here. And I know each generation, there's different challenges, and they're really different kids, honestly. The things that they have to do with society, the attitudes and things that they have to do to try to hold up to society and things like that. I think they're a lot different than we were. And the only reason why I'm saying I think they're a lot different, because just having conversations with some of these young girls and even young boys, they explain to me the challenges are definitely different. As you recall, you may not know, but one of my daughters was on here about couple months ago, and she was telling us about what's going on in the adolescent world, why kids were committing suicide, why they were attempting suicide, why kids were in drugs and alcohol, why kids were sexing, why all this stuff was going on, stuff that we didn't have to deal with when we were younger, especially me. I don't recall dealing with we didn't have technology. That's the first thing. Nobody had a phone. Nobody. And if the parents had a cell phone, because the cell phones had started coming out, well, no, it was the beeper. The beeper came out, then they had the cell phone. That was your mode of how to get connected to somebody. But your kids didn't. You had a house phone, that's it, right? So now everything is available to everybody. So that's certainly different, and that's a different set of challenges than we as adults had growing up. But then you get into the later years, like I said, my kids will be 25, one will be 18, the other two will be 16. And I feel like these last 3 is just a little bit different. It's certainly different than I was raising my 25-year-old. And they just come with just a different set of challenges. And I know if I'm having challenges, there's other parents out here who have challenges. Now, I don't ascribe to be like the perfect parent or the best thing or the best. I feel like I'm the best for my children. I'm perfect for my children, but I don't get it right all the time either. Listen, there's times where I'm upset, I'm frustrated. Because in my mind, I'll be like, how can your mind think that way? In my mind, I'm like, how are you processing it that way? Why are you processing that way? And who taught you to process it that way? Because I ain't teach you that, right? So in my mind, I'm trying to understand their mind. And I think in our kids' mind, they're trying to understand our mind, right? It's like a back and forth thing, because they're probably wondering like, now, Mom, why would you even say that? Or why would you have me do that? You see me doing A, B, and so there's like always like a little conflict because we're not really understanding each other. Probably at the level where we can really seek to understand versus understood. But it's difficult doing that in parenting. It is really difficult to seek first to understand versus to be understood, because as parents, we look at ourselves as authoritative, right? We look at ourselves as the person, the leader of the house, and it's like, you listen to me. I don't really have to listen too much of what you're saying. You have to listen to me because I'm the mom or I'm the dad. I make the rules. I make the money. We get into all this I stuff, and we neglect the emotional response from our children. We kind of cast that off because it's like, listen, all you gotta do is go to school. That's all. You ain't got no pressures, no nothing in life that's causing you to be stressful or causing you not to listen to me, right? But that's not so. We've seen it throughout the year when I have multiple guests on here, and they were just giving us a little bit insight of parenting and also insight from our children's point of view, right? The children's perspective. Again, I think the way that we are now, we have to change our mindset of parenting is just about food, clothing, and shelter, right? I think that we always just point out those three things because they're a necessity, right? It's necessary for you to have food, clothes, and shelter. But I also think that when we look at that, we really got that information from Maslow hierarchy, right? There's several other things that's on that list as well. It's protection, emotional, self-care. There's so many other things that are on our list. And I think that, I don't know if it's dependent on where you grew up, is like you really have to focus on food, clothing, and shelter, and that you don't focus on the emotional need for our children or the intellectual need of our children, or even that love piece, showing it, not necessarily just saying, I love you because you're my child. I love you because you're you, right? So I think that we have to get away from the mindset of, I just need to provide for you, period. Because then we have children who grow up who think that that's all they need to do is just provide for their own children. And then it becomes a generational. So we go into this transgenerational situation, and that we're still trying to recover or restore relationships based on what we have already imparted in our children. It's like now we have to kind of undo some things. And I see it now a lot. The things that parents have done to their children, which they did the best that they could with what they had, right? They're now trying to undo it with the grandchildren. It's like, I don't know about y'all, but I see my parents treat the grandchildren way different than they was treating us. And I don't know if it's just that they just evolved over time, if they evolved and learned some stuff, or they just was like, I'm too old for this. I'm not fitting to fight no kids or argue with no kids. I don't know what it is, but I definitely see grandparents are treating their grandchildren much different, which is actually a good thing to a certain extent, right? Because, you know, you can have a grandchild is jumping and bouncing on the furniture, but we couldn't even sit on the furniture. We had plastic on the furniture. We couldn't even sit on the furniture without the plastic. But then nowadays, they ain't got no plastic on their furniture. They got the babies jumping on the couch with the bottle, milk spilling, and they said, "Oh, she all right." And I'm looking like, well, what happened? Like, what? Like, you done got some weak in your parenting, right? But at the same time, we know that some of the things that we didn't like, it's kind of good that they don't do it now. But sometimes I just feel like, yo, y'all parenting, y'all different with the grandkids. It's a little different. With that being said, anyway, so throughout life, you know, there's growth and development, there's changes, there's attitudes. We all evolve from somewhere, right? There's a couple things I wanted to talk about tonight, just to start off the new year. There's a couple exciting things that's going on with the podcast this year. We are definitely taking it up a notch, keeping up to a notch, going another level. And we're going to be out there. You know, we're going to be on most platforms, podcast platforms, which I'm excited for. And then also we have some exciting guests that are coming on. You thought we had guests last year. We've had great, phenomenal guests last year. But this year it's even... we're going a little bit deeper, taking it to another level, because again, the whole concept of parenting with a purpose is bringing back the responsibility, nobility, and beauty back into parenting. And that comes in everything, right? That is really holistic parenting. So we're going to have a lot of things on here that help families holistically, right? We're going to be talking about nutrition. We're going to be talking about undoing some things with our children that we imparted into them because that's what we learned. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about how can we raise successful children, right? We're going to be talking about the vision for parenting, the vision for our family. We're going to be talking about life insurance, how to make sure that your kids are well taken care of once you leave, or even if something terrible happened to your child, like you're able to even give them a proper going away service. Just like things that we don't really talk about in the community, but it's real. We know that things are happening at the blink of an eye, right? And we always want to be prepared. So there's so many different topics. We're going to be talking about nutrition. What is it and how is it that we're going to feed our family, right? You know, the economy, the food is, the prices of food has gone up. And I know if you think about it, I wasn't back in the day, but I remember when people say bread was 10 cents, right? Bread was 10 cents. So I'm from a generation, I remember gas was 99 cents, right? Growing up with gas was 99 cents. Now we up to $4 in gas. So there's just over time, things have changed and we have to adjust our budgets or figure out a smarter, better, and more efficient way to feed our family and keeping them healthy. You know, not killing them all so that we have to use this life insurance today, right? There's different things that we have to do. So there's so many different topics that we're going to be talking about on the show that I'm excited for. But tonight we're going to gear off and we're going to talk about some different ways to be effective in parenting, right? Some different strategies or techniques or different behaviors, I would say, or characteristics as a parent we should carry so that we can parent effectively, right? So I got my little cheat notes here, y'all, because, you know, I got to write them down. I want to make sure I give y'all some good stuff, right? So the first thing I think when I think about parenting and how to be an effective parent, right? To be efficient and effective, right? One of the things that, as I talked about earlier, is we need to be adaptable, right? We need to have adaptability. And being adaptable is really just adjusting to new change, right? Adjusting to new times and society. And that's adjusting to the new way children think, right? Not saying that, you know, all that is take away from your parenting or your desire to make sure that you raise your children properly. I'm just saying that we need to adjust to some things because, again, like I said earlier, things aren't the same as when we grew up, or even honestly, things aren't the same as last year. or even a couple years ago when COVID came through, we had to really be adaptable, right? We had to do some changes, and some of them changes was very uncomfortable. If you're a parent and you're used to going outside of the house to work, and then you had to work inside the house, if you still was able to keep your job, right, and then you had to work inside the house, and then your students, your children are used to going to school, and now they're in the house with you, so you're trying to work from home, and then you're also trying to help your children because now they're with you all day, so they still need your attention as well, right? And they were entering something new as well, but they had to adjust to, they had to adapt to, which was they was using social media, but they weren't using for the way that for school, right? They weren't using where they now talking to their teacher through a computer. We don't do that. That's haven't been done really here. There are some private institutions that kind of do that a little bit, but not for kids, right? Not for our young kids who it's very hard to even keep their attention, right? So technology had to come into play. So you had to adjust yourself of how am I going to parent, right? How I'm going to work in the house, how I'm going to parent my children, and be able to still get a break too, right? Because the kids need a break, you need a break. Like you're there all day. Now, I know it's probably might sound a little crazy or something, like who doesn't want to be around their kids all day, right? Who doesn't want to? That's what we are with parents. However, I don't think our kids want to be around us all day. I think school is a break for them. School is a break for us where they get to learn some things. They get to get some social skills. They get to hear from other authority figures, right? So that they can be well-rounded and well-adjusted, because we don't want kids that only respect us and listen to us and not able to have those skills to be able to listen to other people. So we had to do some adjustments. We had to adapt, right? It wasn't comfortable. And not only that, we had to adapt to the fact that not only that they were there with us all day, but they couldn't even go to anywhere. They couldn't go outside. They couldn't play with their friends. We really didn't connect with our friends. We did learn how to do that through social media, right? But that it wasn't the ideal situation for growth and development for parents or children, right? And there were things that we needed and that we did not have. So there was a deficiency in it. And now that we're coming out of COVID, but kind of going back into a little bit, but we've learned how to adjust and adapt to able to take them back outside and go back into the schools, right? But now that with that, we're dealing with so many social issues, right? Because they weren't able to socialize with their peers, socialize with their other authority figures. So there are some adjustment that happened years ago, and now that we're coming out of it, we still have to do some adjustment. So our kids are definitely different. So as a parent, the environment definitely changed, but that doesn't change your parenting, right? That doesn't change who you are. Your core values still has to be the same. However, we have to be able to adjust or adapt to new environments. And even just in order to thrive, to grow in development, change has to happen. Didn't want change through COVID like that, but however, that's the hand we were dealt, and we have to make sure that we can do it effectively and efficiently, right? So one of the things, write down on your list, is to be able to adapt, having that adaptability, so that we can change, be able to adjust to change in new environments. The other thing, this is one that this conversation I have with my kids all the time, right? It talks about respect. Now, remember, these are what I quote, what I wrote, and what I've researched and read over time, and just talked to other parents about what does it take to really be effective in parenting, right? And so these are just some of the stuff you can write down, you can research yourself. Just even when you research just some of the words themselves, kind of gives you an idea of how you can relate that into parenting. So we talk about respect. Now, again, I'm from old school, right? Not that old, but I'm from old school where, they said children have to respect their parents, but parents doesn't necessarily have to respect their children, right? I think that because of the authority, we kind of looked at it like, listen, you're going to listen to what I say. You're going to honor what I say. You're going to respect me. But I think that over time, we have forgotten that our children are human too. and that they deserve respect. So I think, and respect really means deep admiration, right? Respect means that I admire you, or I honor you, or I put you to like a higher extent. Like I'm going to, I feel like respect is something that a lot of people say respect is earned, it's not given. But I think that, at least for me, you ain't gotta do this, but for me, I feel like if I'm giving you respect, eventually that respect will turn around towards me too. Like we want our children to respect us, but we don't want to respect our children. That doesn't even sound right. It's like I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'm going to disrespect you, call you names, push you, do whatever I want to do to you as if you're not human. We dehumanize our children sometimes, and we expect our children to respect us, or don't dehumanize us, or don't look at us as the way that we want to be looked at. So I think respect really does have to be on both sides. It's like I'm respecting you and you're respecting me, so that they understand that we love them, we care for them, we admire you. Like you are valuable to me, you are important, I admire you. Like I'm not just saying that because I'm your mom, but I love you, I generally love you. And if you love someone, you're going to respect them, right? I think kids really look at respect, love and respect kind of in the same thing, because you can't tell me that you love me, but yet you're disrespecting me all the time. You're not allowing me to have a voice. You're not even speaking positive, honest, good conversations. Like you're talking at me, not to me. You're not really engaging in conversation. You're doing more of a dictatorship type of parenting. And that's not good, because that's teaching our children. Because remember, whatever we teach our children, whatever we display, whatever we show, our kids will emulate that. And if we're not doing it in the right way, because again, they have to grow up and they have to become parents, and they're going to be adults in this society as well. So our home is the training ground for that. So how we teach our children, how we treat our children, really is going to show it's going to show up on how they treat other people. Right? Think about it. If you got a kid that's bullying, right, and you're wondering, why is this kid bullying? Why is this kid want to be like so aggressive, or why is this child want to be in control of everything? Think about what was going on at the house. There's some, not all instances, but more likely it is than not, that the reason why they may be bullying is because they might even be bullied by their parent at home. And I know it sounds crazy or ridiculous. How can a parent bully? But yeah, talking to that kid, disrespectful, talking down on that kid, even physical violence towards that kid, that is all forms of bullying. So because that child does not have a voice at home, and because that child is being treated this way, they then take that into school, right? And they take it into school and they begin to bully other kids, right? Or the other flip side of it is that they allow themselves to be bullied, because this is what they're receiving at home. So there's two sides to that bullying. You have the person who's bullying and the person who's willing to accept the bullying because of what they experience in their own life, right? So that's why we have to respect our kids, so that they're able to respect themselves and able to give respect to those who are out in the world as well, right? So that's respect. All right. Another word, being intentionality, right? Being intentional. So we just talked about disrespect, right? So being intentional with our thoughts and our words, like really think about what you're thinking about before you even speak it. There's a scripture that always say to slow to speak, quick to listen, meaning that, excuse me, that you hear a thing before you make a comment about it. And that goes all back to the seek first to understand versus to be understood model philosophy that I have, that I can hear you before I even respond, before I even think about a response, right? So I have to be intentional with my words, my actions, my own thought patterns, right? Because if I'm intentional with that, that means that it's going to come out in a positive way. It's going to come out in a more receiving way, because you're not just going off the chart, right? You're not just going off. Like, for example, I did, y'all. I told y'all before, I went off as a parent. I went off. Let me tell you what happened on the break. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be honest and transparent. Listen, I was having a hard time. Man, I was like, my kids are teenagers, three youngest ones. I keep telling y'all, three youngest ones. And they're now 15, two 15-year-olds and 17-year-old. And for the life of me, I can't understand how you can't clean up after yourself. Like, I don't understand if I taught you, and if you're emulating me, right? I clean up after myself. But I can't understand how I did my deep cleaning of the house, right? I did the deep cleaning and everything was in this place. The cabinets were clean, the refrigerators clean, everything was organized, clean just the way I like it, right? And within 5 minutes, they come in the house. The house was like an earthquake, a tornado hit. I couldn't understand. I went off. I couldn't understand. I was caught. I told them they were disrespectful. They ain't had to treat me like that. I literally had an adult temper changer. And I'm not gonna lie, I started throwing the stuff on the floor. And it's crazy because I remember growing up, I remember when my mom used to snap out, right? It was some physical stuff with that, but she used to snap out and she used to throw stuff out. Every dish, if there was one dish dirty in the sink, she would throw every dish out of the sink. Like, you like, with my hard work. But I felt in that moment when my kids made my house as if a tornado or a hurricane, Ike or Mike or whoever came through, ramming through my house and was looking for something, okay? I snapped out. So they had things that was not in order. So they had like food on the counter. They had a dirty pot on there. And like, I woke up to this, right? And I was so hurt. But I was so upset and I was so angry that I felt like it was disrespectful for them to treat the house that I cleaned, hard work, that I didn't even mess up, right? So I got so upset. I woke them all up, right? But I started throwing pots and pans around in the kitchen, y'all. I'm telling you, I was so mad. Like, I mean, I wasn't going to harm my kids, but I wanted them to hear the fire. I wanted them to hear the rage from me. I'm downstairs screaming, I can't believe y'all left this house like that. Why would y'all disrespect me? I'm not going to call y'all lazy, but y'all have some lazy behavior. Like, I literally was so upset, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't like degrading them or speaking bad about them, but I wanted them to know that I was mad. So I started throwing pots and pans around. They started getting up. What's going on? They didn't know what was going on. And I was just like, just yelling at the top of my lungs. And they were looking at me like I had 15 hairs. I probably did look like I had 15 hairs at the time because I felt like I had 15 hairs. You know what? I probably did. All that was coming out, right? And I was so upset. But after I woke them up and they were downstairs and they seen my rage, I went upstairs and took a deep breath. And I was like, yo, how you feel now? I felt terrible because I lost it, y'all. I lost control. Now, I didn't do anything harmful for them. And I made sure that even with me being upset, my words were not harmful. At least my intention was not harmful, right? My intention of my words, I was very strategic of what I was saying. You know, when I was telling my son, listen, I kept saying this, y'all. I'm not calling you lazy. I'm saying you got lazy behavior. Why is your behavior so lazy, right? So I don't know if that makes it even better that I didn't call him lazy, or I don't know. But I don't know if I fumbled that situation. But what I'm saying is that it's moments like that will make you really want to pull your hair out, really want to just feel like, and you got to think. You got to think. You got to be slow to anger, right? You have to be slow to anger because remember, you know, there's an old saying that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. That is a lie because words hurt. Words hurt almost. Your bruises, your bones, they can recover, right? But the words leave a scar that is forever there. So it's very important for us to be intentional of how we speak to our kids, how we respond to them, and how our behavior is. I'm telling you, I knew I was out of pocket. I felt out of pocket. I'm telling you, I knew it. I mean, when I threw the pot on the floor, it scared me. The dog ran. I didn't know what was going on, but I literally was having an adult temper tantrum. And then what I did though, because I knew my behavior was not that of upstanding. And I don't want my kids to emulate that. Once I went upstairs and I had my deep breath and I prayed to God and I was like, God, these your kids, tell me what to do with them. Just like you helped Moses, just like you helped Noah. I start naming everybody in the Bible. You help all of them with these people, okay? So can you help me? And I went back downstairs and I apologized. I told them, now I'm not apologizing for being upset because I have a right to feel upset. But what I am apologizing is how I displayed my anger. Because I don't want my children to display their anger like that. I don't want them to be popping off because something or somebody did something displeasing to them or they felt that they were disrespected. Because reality is, like, you're going to feel like you're disrespected a lot in this world. Not everybody's going to respect you. Not everybody's going to honor you, right? So if I'm teaching my children of how to handle that, again, our home is training ground. So if I'm teaching them how to handle an unpleasant situation or a situation when you feel disrespected, you gotta, as a parent, take a slice of humble pie. I had to humble myself and apologize. And my kid said something to me that was very important. The 17-year-old was like, why are you apologizing? You have every right to be upset. I understand. But I'm apologizing because the way I displayed my behavior. That is why I'm apologizing. So when I talk about being intentional, we have to be intentional of our thoughts, intentional of our words, our attitudes, because we don't want to damage our children. And we don't want that kind of damage to come from us, right? We don't want, as a parent, to damage your child in that way where when they go out in the world, one, they start to accept that type of behavior from someone else. Two, they start to emulate that behavior. So either way, that's not good, right? So there's always two sides to a coin. Either they're going to emulate it or they're going to start accepting it. And we don't want that because we want them to be honored and respected at all times as well. So be intentional of what we're doing. This one right here. Yeah, I'm going to scratch my head on that one. Steadfast love. Steadfast love. You're thinking, what is steadfast love? I know what steadfast means. I know what love. So put those together. Steadfast love meaning that my love doesn't change. My love is unmovable, right? Immovable. Your situation, circumstances does not change my love. That does not move my love from the way that the foundation of it for you, right? Nothing that you can do can change the way that I love you. Now, there's things that you could do make me not like you in that moment, but there's nothing that can change the way that I love you. So we have to when we think about love, it's intimacy, it's passion, it's commitment. Love is protection. Love is affection, right? So if we're steadfast in those things don't change because of the situation. The only time those things should change is when we're doing it at a greater level because of the situation. Because you did this does not mean I pull my love back, right? Because then, again, we talking about our children emulating, and there's two sides to that. Either they're going to behave like we're doing, thinking that love is actually a give and take, or they're going to start receiving love as a give and take. So we don't want them to either behave that way or even receive that type of behavior, or at least have the standards to know that behavior is not for me. Because remember, we're raising our children. They're going to be adults. Like, they're going to be adults. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, they're going to grow up. They're going to leave your house. The hope is that they go leave your house and become successful, right? And in order for that, these are just tools of how we as parents really set the standard, set the bar, right? So steadfast love, like, I think that is so. When I was thinking about steadfast love, I was like, okay, steadfast love, like your love cannot change, and you have to allow your children to understand that your love doesn't change based upon what they do, right? God's love doesn't change for us based upon what we do, so we cannot do that to our children. And also let them know that their love for us shouldn't change based upon what we do. For example, Christmas is just here. So if you were a parent who's always used to giving your kids stuff, and they tie giving and love together, or material things and love together, and at a time you weren't able to do it for whatever reason, and then they decide that they want to pull their love back from you because you couldn't give them A, B, and C. And that's because that's something that they're learning, that love, they're learning that love is a give or take like that. And we have to teach them, no, love is steadfast. We don't have to move away from the love. Now, we don't like every situation and circumstances. We don't. We don't. However, the love of it should never change. The love of our children and our children's love for us should never change at all. If anything, if the change for it, I believe it's at a greater level, a deeper intimacy. And a lot of times that deeper intimacy is as they grow and become an adult, because you're so busy raising them that sometimes we can't get that deep desired intimacy like we want, because of we're trying to have that line where we're making sure that everything is done well. And then sometimes we drop the ball, we fumble a little bit, because, life be life out here. And I understand. Another one is like boundaries, right? That's another word that I want to point out there is boundaries. Now, when we think about boundaries, right, sometimes, at least for me and talking to other people, we always think about we placing a boundary so that somebody doesn't hurt us, or somebody doesn't enter into our space, or we don't allow people to take us there, or something like you have boundaries. But there's also boundaries just for yourself, right? Because a lot of time we feel like boundaries is based on about someone else, what they do or what they can't do, what we want to allow, what we will allow. But boundaries also about ourselves, what we will allow ourselves to do. Have boundaries around our kids, but not to the point where it limit them of being children. It limit them of being human. I think we dehumanize our children so much sometimes that we forget, listen, they're human too. So if we have boundaries, not just, hey, this is the boundary, you don't do A, B, and C, but also this is a boundary for myself that I won't allow myself to act A, B, and C, or I'll allow you to some space to be able to grow, right? One of the words that literally is just been on my heart for literally probably over a year is grace. Giving our children grace, right? Because again, I think if we understand that children are growing and they are developing, children are growing and they are developing. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. Children are growing and developing. So we have to give them some grace to do that. Give them some grace and space to do it. We don't want, and I think I said this on my show before I remember my oldest daughter told me, like, Mom, you live a porcelain lifestyle. We don't want to raise children that are porcelain. We don't want to raise statues. We don't want to raise children that only act a certain way in front of people. I'm not talking about like the professionalism, honor, respect of how you act, but really their character, right? Of who they are as a person, like not acting one way in church. I had this conversation with my bonus mom today about really acting one way in church, one way at school, one way at the job, and then one way at home. That's giving mixed signals to our children, right? So even allowing them to just have the freedom to be who they are and giving them the grace to grow, because it's growth and development. And as you know, we are adults and we're still growing and development. Like, I feel like you never stop growing. You never stop development. You never stop evolving. So if we want people to give us space and grace to do that, we must give that to our children. And letting them know, listen, I don't have to jump on everything that you do wrong, or what I would appear to be wrong, or what I perceive it to be wrong, right? Again, because sometimes I don't know what they be thinking. Sometimes I don't know what they be thinking. But if I jump on them for everything they do, they will never think that they do anything right. So giving them that grace. You don't have to correct every mistake. Honestly, my kids be telling me when they make mistakes. They be like, listen, I did this, I fumbled this, I did that. And I didn't even have to say something. Like if they do something, I'll look at, especially the 17-year-old, because she's so in tune with herself, that if she does something wrong and I just look and she be like, I already know, TT. I already know. I already know. And I don't even have to say anything. So it's just times where giving them that grace and that space to be able to grow and develop and to fail, right? because I think that we look at failure as such a negative thing because failure has always had a negative connotation behind it. But how do you know, like, that's risk in life, right? You need to be able to take risks. Our kids take risks. Like, if I want to do something and I don't do it well, not necessarily that I failed at it, but I just learned how to do it a better way. So that's what happened with our kids. Sometimes things happen and they just have to learn how to do it differently. And they have to learn from their experiences just like we do. I'm still learning as a parent. I'm kind of coming out the raising part of my children because they're older and are going into early adulthood. So I'm kind of coming out of the raising stuff, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be a parent forever, right? So there's still things that I'm going to be able to teach them just in a different way now, right? Another word that we're going to be talking about is forgiveness. Again, basically that's kind of still around grace, right? We're giving them the space, giving them grace for the space, right? And then we're also forgiving them for things that we didn't feel like they should have done. Or I think forgiveness goes two ways, right? If we practice forgiveness for our children, they then again practice forgiveness for us because we don't get it right all the time, right? Just the fact that when I was throwing the pots and pans around was flipping out, they were able to forgive me. Why? Because I forgive them for things that they do. I feel like I need to be a little bit more forgiving because I'm like so strict sometimes on different things. I feel like sometimes I need a little bit more forgiving. So that's what I say. So as parents, we have to really be forgiving so that our children can emulate that. So our children, again, we want our children to really be out in this world and doing their thing, right? We don't want them to have any animosity around people. We don't want them to be aggressive. We don't want them to just like stressed out and the world is caving on top of our head. We want them to have peace, love, kindness, like all these things. So if we do that in the home, training ground, they then can emulate that into the world. And the last thing I'll talk about is gratitude, right? Gratitude. Having the attitude of gratitude. I appreciate you. I love you. Not just because you're my child, but I am grateful for the fact that you are you. I'm grateful for the things that you do. I'm grateful for the things that you say. I'm grateful for you as being a human. I'm grateful for the things that you grew through and you developed some other things. Like, I'm grateful for you. And as we show our kids that we're grateful for them, not, oh, I'm only doing this because you're my kid situation. Not, oh, I'm the mom, so I gotta provide this or I gotta do this. Like that whole negative connotation mindset, I just want us to get away from it. We're doing positive stuff, right? So if we're showing our kids, like, I really appreciate you. I honor you. I love you for you being you. I'm grateful for you without you having to do A, B, and C. Because then they will be grateful for us if we didn't do this or we didn't do that. Just being us, right? So that's what we need to really show our children, how to be grateful. And honestly, all these things, I'm going to go back on the list. All these things that I talked about tonight is literally holistic living. How to really exemplify the things that we want our children to be, right? If you never seen it, you don't know how to do it, right? If you've never seen it, you're not familiar with it. It's not familiar. It's foreign to you, right? And let me tell you something. If we don't close our kids with this type of stuff, when they go out in the streets, the world's going to show them something. The world's going to clothe them with whatever they can attach to them. Whatever they can attach to them. Good, bad, or indifferent. And because they're not familiar with these things, if we're not doing that in our house, they're going to fall for anything. So if they don't stand for something, the old saying, if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for everything. Not just anything, everything. And we don't want our kids falling in a trap of nothing. So we have to, as parents, really be intentional. So again, we need to be able to adapt to new situations and circumstances. And I'm not saying, and adapting is not being weak. It is more understanding of the new situation and circumstances. And how can we best operate in this, right? And then we have to respect our children. We have to be intentional with our thoughts, our words, and our attitudes. We have to have that steadfast faith. Faith. I'm always talking about faith, right? That steadfast love that is warm, playful, intimate, passionate. We have to have that steadfast love. That love doesn't change. We need to set boundaries for our children and ourselves. We need to give them grace. We need to have forgiveness, and we need to have gratitude. So there are just some things that throughout my years of parenting and coaching other parents and just having conversation with children, just some things that they desire, because the number one thing that I hear a lot is respect. I remember having a conversation with my kids and they was talking about respect, and they were almost like to me, the way I perceived it at the time was that they thought we was on an even playing field. They thought that they could say stuff, and like it was just a whole thing of they want to be heard and they want to be respected, and don't want to be talked at. They want to be talked to. And this is them in their older years as teenagers, not as young kids. This is not the language of young kids. This is a language of, I'm about to get up out your house and I need to be able to really know what it is to be respected. I feel like that's where it was going. So there you have it. Tonight was a great show. Again, tune in every Thursday because we have some dynamic guests coming on. So next week we are having, we're going to be talking about vision, writing a vision for your family, writing a vision for parenting. What is your vision in parenting? How do you want to parent? What is the outcome that you want? And what are the steps that you're going to take to make this thing happen? Because a vision, if it's just in your head, it's just a wish. I wish I'd be a good parent. I wish this or I wish that. But a vision is actually something that you write down and that you can constantly go back to it and read it when things go a little chaos. Because again, parenting is not for the weak. I keep telling y'all. And sometimes we go astray even in parenting. But if I have my vision down, what my vision is in parenting and what my vision is for my household, I can always go back and read it and remind myself, this is, girl, you better steadfast, be unmovable, because you in it to win it, right? So if I constantly just have it in my head, it's just in my head. It's just, I wish something. But actually having it written down and coming up with a plan. Everything is a plan though when you think, I'm not going to get onto it because we're going to talk about it next week. But I'm just saying everything in life, we really have to have a plan of how we're going to execute it, right? So join us next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. for Parenting with a Purpose. And remember, the mission, the vision, the goal of Parenting with Purpose is to bring back the responsibility, nobility, and beauty back into parenting. And remember, parents, I am the bows. And our children are the arrows, and they will land. Trust me and believe. If you ask anybody who is like 70, 80, who got kids that are 50, 40, they will let you know their children will land exactly where you aim them eventually, and that they have a process and they have a journey. So thank you for tuning in to Parenting with a Purpose.